We talk about political differences all the time, but rarely speak about the two contrasting philosophies which lay the foundation of governance. You often hear that the founding fathers of the United States held different religious views but somehow worked together to draft a constitution they could live with. The reason they were able to agree is because religious beliefs and dogmas have nothing to do with political beliefs and dogmas. The debate is between individualism and collectivism. Individualists believe that a person has the inherent right to choose what is best for him or her, and that the state's role is to protect that right. Collectivism is based on the belief that the common good of society is the ultimate goal, and the reason for the state is to provide individuals' needs. So these are the two ideas that are at the core of politics, but are rarely talked about. And the ideas are what really matter. Without understanding your ideological beliefs, it's very hard to understand the views of others, often even your own. So let's talk about these two philosophies a little bit more in detail. Both of them seem like good ideas on the surface, but let's try and get down to the root. Individualists see the group from the individual's point of view and seek to allow that individual to determine their own life's path. Individualism asserts every person in the group should have the freedom to choose based on his or her own free will, and as long as the individual doesn't infringe on the rights of the others in the group, his or her actions are considered moral, and the state doesn't need to intervene. Collectivists see the individual as part of the whole and seek to regulate the individual based on the needs of the group. Collectivism asserts that the needs of the group outweigh the needs of the individual, and that, morally, the state should decide in favor of the group. Individualists believe in free association and voluntary relationships within the community. This gives the individuals the freedom to work together to accomplish goals if they so choose, or to buy and sell to one another freely. Collectivists believe that the state's role is to regulate relationships within the community, and every individual should work for the good of the whole. The state ensures that the exchanges between individuals are overseen, and that the common good is maintained. Okay, so far, individualism kind of seems like democracy, and collectivism kind of seems like democracy. And in fact, democracy kind of seems like a little bit of both. So let's take a hypothetical situation with a small group as an example, just to demonstrate. One from the perspective of individualism, the other from the view of collectivism. Here's a group of 4 people. All of them are farmers. 3 of the farmers produce 10 pounds of food. One of the farmers produces 0 pounds. In the individualist model, all the farmers keep their food and are able to do with it as they will. If farmer number 4 wishes to eat, and he will have to create an agreement with one or more of the other farmers. In the collectivist model, the state makes sure that farmer number 4 gets a quarter of all the food that was produced in the group, whether he produces any or not. The individualist camp seeks to profit from their own labor. This makes the distinction that anything a person makes is his property, and he is allowed to do with it as he sees fit. The collectivists do not necessarily seek to profit, but merely produce enough for the group. Neither does the collectivist camp clearly define property, but instead decide what each person should or should not have based on the perceived need and the overall benefit of the group. The obvious question in the collectivist model is, why produce anything at all? And as long as enough food is being produced, the answer is extremely obvious. It's to the individual's benefit not to. But what if all the individuals figure that out? How much food will be produced and how much will be regulated by the state? And just who is the state anyway? Well, the state is made up of people in the group. It could be the entire group, or it could be a small portion of the group, or even a single person. So in either case, collectivist or individualist, it could be a democracy, or a republic, or even a democratic republic. So the form of government is not really even relevant at all, but the political philosophy has a profound impact on the outcome for the group and each individual who is part of that group. That's why this is such an important topic and the distinctions really need to be made. Individualism allows citizens to do as they please as long as they don't infringe on the rights of the others. So what exactly are those rights? They are life, liberty, and property. So as long as no one tries to kill, steal, or force anyone to do anything they don't want to do, they're not breaking the law. This seems like a pretty clear and understandable static code. It can be a little blurry, but it's a fairly concrete concept. Collectivism allows citizens to do as they please as long as it is considered to be for the common good of society. And just what exactly is the common good? Well, that depends. The common good is what is best for the group but can change depending on the situation and gets extremely muddy because it's always evolving. So the common good has a sliding moral scale, and it could be technically moral to kill, steal, or force people to act against their will should it serve to benefit the group in some way. This concept is far more abstract, and I think it's clear to see why collectivism is such a popular concept among the ruling classes, especially authoritarians. Collectivism justifies things that may otherwise be considered morally unjust in an individualistic society. Collectivism is an extremely slippery slope and can be a prevailing philosophy in any form of government. Some notable forms of collectivism include socialism as well as communism, but can also be applied to democracies as well as republics, oligarchies, and dictatorships. Let's briefly look at a couple of other hypothetical examples. ABC Insurance Company decides to take a risk with all its capital. The corporation goes bankrupt and loses all its acquisitions. In an individualistic society, other organizations are able to purchase the failed company's assets, and ABC Insurance no longer exists. Its market is replaced, however, by several other companies which fill the previous corporation's niche. In a collectivist society, President X rules that the company is invaluable to the state, and it is for the benefit of the populace to bail them out. The citizens of the state pay trillions of dollars to ensure the corporate giant stays in business, and none of the other insurance companies are given a chance to expand or grow. After all this is said and done, ABC Insurance Company sues the state and costs the citizens even more money. Example number 2. So-and-so church group protests someone's funeral. In an individualistic society, people boycott so-and-so church and leave them alone. The church is hated by most people, but they are left to do as they wish and speak about their beliefs. In a collectivist society, 300,000 people sign a petition to legally recognize so-and-so church group as a hate group. The state rules in favor of the petition and penalizes the group by fining it $10,000, and also imposes limits on its ability to protest and demonstrate. People form an anti-so-and-so church group and protest a member of the so-and-so church group's funeral. 100,000 people sign a petition to legally recognize the anti-so-and-so church group as a hate group, and the state complies. The anti-so-and-so church group is fined $10,000 and is no longer allowed to protest or demonstrate. Other groups that protest in inconvenient places are soon recognized as hate groups by their rival groups, and after a few years, all activists are only allowed to demonstrate in state-approved free speech zones underneath of bridges. Example number 3. A school shooting occurs and a bunch of children are killed. In an individualistic society, the people decide to ban gun-free zones because logic dictates that more guns equals less crime. In a collectivist society, the state decides that guns are unsafe and makes the rest of the country a gun-free zone. This allows criminals to have free reign, and the people become oppressed and controlled. Collectivism sounds like a great idea at face value, and so do many of the movements and organizations associated with it. Some of them include the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, social justice advocacy, sustainable development, gun control, prohibition, federally mandated health care, the FCC, the MPAA, the feminism movement, welfare, affirmative action, the TSA, the FDA, the war on drugs, the environmental movement, any lobbying organization, the IRS, the war on terror, the EPA, the Department of Homeland Security, and the military-industrial complex. The Constitution of the United States is based on the political philosophy of individualism. Based on the examples above, it seems easy to understand why. I encourage anyone to check their premises and their political dogma before attempting to argue their opinions. The root of your political belief structure is necessary to understand in order to properly argue for or against a cause. It's time to get to the root of the problem instead of whacking at the branches. Rights and needs are not synonymous terms. You have the right to determine and provide your own needs and desires. That's what human rights is all about. Next time you think somebody should make a law about something, ask yourself if you're thinking like a collectivist or an individualist instead of a Republican or a Democrat. If you wish to restrict someone's free will, you're probably thinking like a collectivist. If you wish to allow others more freedom, you are probably thinking like an individualist. Understanding the ideas behind politics is absolutely essential for a free and open society. In fact, one could argue that this knowledge makes the politics themselves inconsequential.